And the boys are back with the tide making a splash in the meta as the Orks come forth this last weekend with a GT winning event and some undefeated lists from teams events as well as other winning players that we'll talk about on today's WAAAGH Wednesday. We have the stats and the facts, the honorable mentions, and of course the top player coverage, as our GT winner did actually give us notes on how the games went. So we'll be able to get stuck in and talk about that, lads. So congratulations to everybody, and there's much to be excited for you, Gits. So with that being said, let's get stuck in, lads. And I'd like to, of course, start off with the stats and the facts from this last weekend. So I did make sure I did this. Oh, this was from last weekend. Was this? Let me make sure. I changed the dates. Sometimes it pops back, but I got this, guys. So, of course, we're using Stats Uber. Shout out to the Git. There we go. I was like, those stats are too many Gits for just this, just for one weekend. So we had 22 Ork players this weekend. We had a 51% win rate, shooting up about 4 or 5%. Some gets in the chat saying that's mostly from teams. So we'll look at that. We'll look at how the actual detachments are going. And again, Kult of Speed making its appearance as the #1 winning by percentage. But of course, the numbers are skewed. As you can see, there's only 23 Kult of Speed players overall that are there, and then 394 of the Orks. So we can't filter this down to just simply this weekend, but I do have a Kult of Speed list for you today. As people were saying right now, shout out to our Get in the chat. Orks are amazing in teams. 8-0 at teams. Last night events haven't dropped games. We're going to be on that flow today. But of course, like I said, we're going to talk about singles as our Orks did win a GT. So we have then, speaking of, we have Warhorde, which is the detachment the player was playing. Shout out to Warhorde getting its run finally. We've been waiting for that, considering that we all kind of lean heavily into it, at least for the majority of the Ork players. So good things going on there. Now, the more DACA run, boys, I'm going to say and take credit as WAAAGH Tactics, as in the community and people who watch this show to the Ork community, is people watch more Perry's video, right? And I get feedback from that all the time. So even though it's not a huge player pool of 40, this number has been steadily rising, and Mark Perry himself is leading the way as the war boss in that detachment. So check out those videos on more DACA, as they're still relevant. It's still being played. Then we have Green Tide. Shout out to 40K Dirtbags taking his hand, and the Orks playing his Green Tide. And of course, I would like to say this is a skew, sometimes even a specialist, right? Not only does it take an Ork player, but a special kind of Ork player to actually be willing to play the Green Tide. So shout out to them, Gits. I know the numbers come and go and everything, and I think there's a ton of damage out there. So I can see why people, if they're trying to figure it out or not necessarily go to the full skew of 120, then maybe they would take a chance on struggling with Green Tide for a little bit as they experiment. Speaking of experimentation, the Bully Boys have pulled themselves out of the Orky shroom pits to a degree, because they were kind of falling into the high 30s range. But shout out to them Gits that are running in. We got 45 there, right along Green Tide, which is kind of confusing to me, though, because not confusing, but surprising, because there's such different like skew levels. All right, we have the Tide players, a whole bunch of models, and the Bully Boys players that are probably trying to play with some of the least amount of models. Then we go to, but shout out to them. I love that they're trying it. I think this is one of those teams, detachments, and lists that's doing well. Then we go into the Hunt. The Hunt to me is straight up specialist, right? Channel Discord, and even sometimes all over Facebook or wherever the Tide hides, that there's the Hunt specialist of people who just run it to make it work. So shout out to them. Gets not too much of a player increase, though. Something I will point out there. But something that has had a big player increase is the Dread Mob. Whoa, right? You guys know I'm a Dread Mob enthusiast. So 75. So right there, just by far the most popular detachment outside of Warhorde. And even then, you kind of have to have the models to play it. Of course, you see the win rate, though, and a lot of the time I think people are just experimenting, having a good time. But then again, there's some Gits that are getting stuck in using big mobs of cans, people taking stampas. So there's definitely play in that, but there's also so much hilarity that people kind of tend to just have fun with it. So keep having fun with it. It's all good. You know, those numbers, even when Dreadmob was having results, was still kind of like a funny lower percentage. So shout out to them. I'm not sad about it at all. Dreadmob does get into like Necron matchup for the most part. Of course, anything can happen, blow yourself up. But destroying Katans and armored units, it does have play. It just takes a little bit of a spamming the same units to become competitive, right? Even though, and when it's the most silly detachment, so I get it. Then we go to green tactical brigade. Sorry, I already said green tactical brigade. You know, tactical brigade is one of those that I to be honest, as I've said before, I put down after they were kind of they took so many of our nerfs and they just made it not nearly as interesting. But shout out to Brandon, who we have covered and had a guest on here trying to talk up tactical brigade and making it work. And I see people trying all the time, but that number hasn't increased too much of player base or the innovation behind it outside what we've seen, you know, about a month ago. So we'll see if that gets any love or if people find the combos there. Here's just some summary. We had total wins of the Orks with 54 out of the 48. Some draws, 3 of the top 4 finishes, 1 event win, with 2 4-0 starts. So shout out to them, kids. But also we got to give out shout out to our sponsor, Lighter Creative Gaming. So check them out in the description for the link there to help out the channel. If you need a battle mat, it's gridded, it's beautiful, makes your games easier, your setups easier, gets you used to how much spacing and differences actually matter and how you can really extend it. So I've done videos on it even. Shout out to them. Check them out in the description if you want to help out the Great Wall and need a battle mat. So let's move on. Of course, we have the paint competition. Make sure you guys get in for that. So shout out to them because you guys are awesome who are participating in that. Then we go to some of our honorable mentions. Yeah, looks like I was supposed to have another list in there that I'll just read out loud. Or maybe I'll pull that one down and let you guys go back to it. Someone was asking, let me pull it back the correct one, guys, because that got a little funky. As for what I'm using, this is Stats Hubert. So it's stats.hutber.com. All right. So just in case you guys are looking to check it out, let me just go ahead and fix that up. What's up, chat? In the meantime, I should talk to chat. What's up, chat? How you guys doing? Whoa, I see everybody's here. It's popping off, you know, and then, you know, more players. The wall is kind of gathering right now as the energy is going up. But shout out to you kids that are here. Happy to see you. Now, it looks like I might have clicked something to get rid of my proper display because I want to have the proper list on there because I did have a teams list. So that does have to come to the forefront. Let's see about that, you get. So let me make sure I pull that up. What's up? What's up, Brandon? Whoa, talk about tactical brigades. Yeah, man, it's not, you know, it's not shining out, but hey, you did a great job. Don't worry about that. But you know, look, get to trying to figure it out. Here we go. Thank you. I was like, I had a little bit more of an updated list than this. So we do have a teams one for the honorable mention. Make sure you guys check this out. They're going to be a vote for the live. Make sure you vote in this to see what you guys actually want to pull up and cover. But some of these are repeats from last week because I like the list and such. There was also other players that went 4-1 over this last weekend. So shout out to them. One of them was another teams event, a War Horde list that I don't have on here. But that's because we're going to already cover War Horde for the most part right now. And this is this event down here had a little bit higher placing. So we have Eric with the Hamburg Major. We have Jordan Salmon with Jordan Salmon with War Horde at a Wet Coast. Edward Askley at Uprising Adelaide War Horde. And then Nathan Pearson at January Grand GT Teams War Horde event as well. So pick which you guys want to actually work for. I know they're all War Horde. Trust me, I know people are going with that, but don't worry. I got something for you speed freak gets. And we'll get into that here in a bit. Just make sure you guys get those votes in. What's up, chat? Yeah, Tactical Brigade is hard to play. And it's not as fun, to be honest, right? At least speaking for myself, how I feel. You guys let me know live checking my back. You know, I think that it's also not nearly as fun to play as when it came out. So not happy about that, to be honest. I think that kind of threw my interest away. And shout out to Jank with 5 Walt Tactic gifted memberships. Whoa! So yeah, thank you for that very much. You get nice to see you here, getting stuck in. I really appreciate it. It's very generous and it means a lot, so it goes a long way. So thank you very much for that. And he's the channel moderator. So check out Jank with that cunning get. So let's move on to the teams list that went undefeated, that I, of course, have a soft spot for, being currently running Cult of Speed for the most part. And of course, some of these, this list does reflect what we've advised, what we've talked about with Cult of Speed. So it's nice to see, the theories and the things that I gather from my preferences, and then boom, brought out into the real meta and what's actually being played out there to other players, kind of getting tested and kind of spread differently. So I'm happy to see it. Of course, like we've kind of said and anticipated before, that Cult of Speed, alongside some of these other detachments, like when I said Bully Boys earlier in the video, are more favorable in teams. And I think that's why I kind of wanted to show this up. So pretty exciting in that. Don't have notes from the get, but I am familiar with the list. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into it. We have a beast boss as the war horde and a death killer war track. Nice and clean, right? Whenever you can get an orc list that lean and that clean on characters, you're either gonna have a horrible list or you're gonna have a really filled out list with a ton of units and wounds that the enemy is gonna have to chew through all day. So then we go into just the 10 snaggers, of course, for the beast boss. 2 trucks, a Boondoggle Snaz wagon. That's the wagon. That's the buggy that has the aura for -1 to hit if you get within 6 inches of it. Doesn't work on monsters or vehicles, as built-in sustain. Small alarms fire, strength 1, -1, 1 damage. 2 minimum size units of Gretchen. 1 custom booster blaster. This is the one that when it shoots at something, if it hits it in the shooting phase with its rivet gun, it'll be -1 to hit. So, and then it also has some built-in flamers on it too. Those are the 2 cheaper ones. And like I've said before, there's something to be said of bringing the debuffing buggies just for all these wounds and ablative wounds, so it's harder for the enemy to chew through. So I really like that he teched into that. The Boondoggle Snaz wagon's good for the melee matchup. He stages somewhere somewhat safe so that people can't destroy it, make them actually have to get within the aura range to destroy your more important units like the bikers and the death coptas, or in general anything really. And then of course the custom boosted blaster, so you can actually reach out and shoot the problematic unit that maybe is a little too efficient into your units. So like that, I would like to see not too many buggies, because like I said, buggies can tend to hold you back in the competitive top of Cult of Speed. That doesn't mean they have no play, it just means that you do not run more than 3 generally. Of course, the big 18 death coptas, absolutely amazing in this detachment with the built-in advance, shoot, charge, do whatever you want almost. You can access to the 4-up invuln because it's a vehicle and it's lower than T8. So boom, you get 4-up invuln on this unit for 1 CP. I love it. It's so hard to chew through, and then even when enemies gone dealing with it, they've either over invested or they've under investment. Now you have a free unit to run around and keep doing stuff, and it's flag, right? So that really helps for how you're getting stuck in places a lot. Cult of Speed really suffers when it doesn't have some of these death coptas. Then you go into the difference, another difference from my play style or my unit, whatever, my list that I played, is 20 flash gets. So he has 2 5-man units and then 1 10-man unit of flash gets. Different to see. Would definitely like to hear. So if our boy Andre plays or sees this video, leave a comment, let us know what you think about these flash gets and how they actually did and what your thought process was here. I'm thinking, of course, it could be of 2 things. You have the 2 5-man units for getting more activations, disembarking at time and kind of slow playing it. Then you have the big 10-man brick for those problematic situations where you really need to move through terrain. Like, I don't know if this was played on WTC or GW, but I'm assuming because it was in Italy, the teams event. I'll show that in a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but say you're playing GW layout 8, as I've done plenty of times with Cult of Speed. It's the problem is you really can't move to those buildings. Sometimes you really just want a big 10-man brick that can stage up, jump out, do its thing, counter charge, do a bunch of punches. different kind of thing. And then also it has a good amount of wounds as well built in that kind of adds to the whole blade of wound things alongside the war bikers and the death coptas. And they're relatively cheap for what they are and what they bring. They have their built-in sustain lethal potential. It's pretty sick. So I like seeing 10-man flash kit units, but it's interesting to see them brought as a support. He brought some small DACA support alongside all of these units and then a counter punching unit. And then it's nice because the 10-man, the flash kits themselves are like a combined arms unit, right? So he didn't favor too much his shooting side or his combat side. That unit helps both sides, which is the theme of Cult of Speed. You really much do shoot and fight. One commando unit, you really kind of need that for not getting jailed, generally, what I see when I'm playing it. He only brought a Breacher Ram and the rockets. Then he's still able to fit a nice 5-man unit of Storm Boys. Still, I think that is vital, and it feels really good because at least how I was running Cult of Speed, still am to a degree. You don't have the Storm Boys necessarily, so it's all the time. So it's like, well, I really need someone to move around and do these actions, be in better positioning, easier to stage up. So I do still like a Storm Boy being brought. So though sometimes I don't bring it, I definitely see people still find a way to bring one, because though the similarities are drawn between a Storm Boy and a War Biker, as in, well, for points you could get this or this. It's not that simple. The War Biker is not staging and functioning in the same way necessarily, though similarly. But and then we have, of course, the big bricks of War Bikers. Now, I think that it's pretty interesting and nice that that we only see one trike. Now, I do play two, maybe because I'm playing GW. For whatever reason, I need to close the distance. I prefer two, but I can totally understand why he brings one. So much easier to navigate terrain with that, right? So that's one thing that I can be wondering why it is. And then he also brought the WAAAGH Blasta enhancement. Now, as I've been playing, I haven't really used that. It hasn't come into play too often, but it's when you shoot an enemy unit, but you can move 6 inches, but then you can't charge them. That could be for if you really have something you're trying to stave off and be a problem, or if it's late game, you're trying to shoot and get to safety and maybe play more of the mission instead of the killing potential can come into play. But generally, I haven't had that come up too often, maybe because I'm just hyper aggressive with it. So yeah. Let me see. So then let's go to the actual event. Let me pull that up. Oh, here we go. So we can go through this gets past the victory. Like I said, it was teams. So here's his team placings. You guys can see Italia. Shout out to the Italian gets. I don't think we have a metric of players there, so I doubt our get will see it, but hopefully it does. So let's look into his actual path to victory. What's up with Chad? Don't worry, Chad. I'll come back to you. I'll answer some of the more questions when we go through his path to victory, and then any questions about the list I answer from live chat after, just so we get through it in like a somewhat timely manner. There's like a back and forth because I have like multiple more lists I want to show today, so a lot going on. So first matchup was Chaos Space Marines with Fabius Bile. It's actually somewhat a quite potent detachment and hyper aggressive, so interesting. We have Chaos Lord and then a Chaos Lord. No Fabius Bile. No Fabius Bile on your Fabius Bile detachment. I am accepting your loss. 2 10-man units of cultists, 2 5-man units of legionnaires, a Chaos Rhino, a Chaos Biker unit, 2 units of Chaos Predator Destructors, a 5-man unit of the Nemesis Claws. There we go. 2 big bricks of Possessed, followed by 2 Raptors, and then a big old unit of Warp Talon. So Fabius Bile's thing is he can make units, based off on the beginning of the game. He can make them faster and leave it more durable, or like +1 to hit. Even though he's not on this list, I'm saying the detachment. And then they have access to like advance and charge and different buffs like that. Quite aggressive and killy. But he's definitely playing big old mobs and bricks. So what's good about that with Kult of Speed is that once you do stage up, get into position, smash into this enemy unit, the army start picking off his smaller units, then he has to come forward with this brick to whatever the initial wave is. In response, you get to take a huge chunk of flesh away from him, and that was really his big pounding damage dealing unit, and these guys aren't necessarily tough. Cult of Speed does suffer into killing, but what I found is the things you actually don't suffer as much killing are big mobs of infantry or just simple Space Marine bodies. So because when you have these big mobs, they get access to your your dev coptas can sustain to them, hit them with blast. The blast really helps for the fact that their amount of shots are quite inconsistent and their actual shooting is not reliable. But when you give that many volumes of shot and are getting sustained too, you're just so much dice at that point that it becomes a big problem, and you can start melting these guys. Access to mortal wounds if you fly over them. So it's nice in that way as well. He also has that beast boss, remember, so you can run in and smash into a predator destructor, which typically is something a Cult of Speed list could suffer with, or he can tag team it, hit it, and then with something else and pop it. What's also interesting is he could actually do the same thing to the Rhino, for example, right? So say that there's the Legionnaires in there and you're able to get crashing into them first or more aggressively, that he can crush the Rhino with the Beast Boss and then pile into whatever gets out of it with the Bikers. Yes, and then the Bikers can pop Lance for 1 CP. So the light Bikers could be strength 5 on the wall. Legionnaires are only T4. Then you pop Lance. So that's how you would really stack the damage with Cult of Speed to start dismantling this army to some degree. So I like that. It was an interesting call to put him into that matchup. So he must have been very familiar with how that could go. So I like to see that. I like to see that because some people would say, well, that army can just aggressively smash into you first, hold you back, and then give you a run for your money. But in response, really, he just has a bunch of missiles. And once those missiles come into your Cult of Speed kind of units, you have that -1 buggy, you have those little dumb units floating around, your Mandos, your Storm Boys. When those units are out and about, his cultists can't kill those, right? So he's gonna have to send out the Chaos Lords or some other units, the Nemesis and such like that. You start picking those apart. Very cool to see. Nice run through that. Then we go into his second matchup. I want to make sure I click the right thing. So then we go into a Ork mirror match, but this is with Warhorde versus Cult of Speed. There you go. Oh man. So double beast bosses, a Big Mech, a Stickra, Gazgultraka, and a Zagra Wartsnaga. This gets after me on hot. It looks like some list that I'd play. 2 10-man units of Snagas, a big 20-man unit of the boys, double wagons. Here we go. A flash kit brick, 2 5-man units of flash kits, a 20-man of Super Gretchen, 2 minimum-sized unit of Gretchen, and then a Mando followed by a Storm Boy unit. So normally the Ork matchup is so chaotic because both of you guys are somewhat statically slow in your own way without the wall, where you're kind of creeping into each other and you're not too aggressively trying to stage because another Ork player can charge you. We'll talk about mirrors more today, but we'll unpack that a little bit, how those games could go. But the whole point of it is you need to get your pound of flesh first. That who can declare the wall, make the contact with the most units, can typically do a lot of damage. Another thing to take into consideration is Cult of Speed can possibly close the distance faster even without the wall, so you're still checking those threat ranges. Possibility of jailing going on between all these battle wagons, and if you take these chunks of flesh off the cultist, the Warhorde list before they have a lot of CP, they can't stack all of the defensive abilities, and there are also fights on death and their interventions or their counter fighting or anything like that, their interruptions. So very elite because every single thing is built to kill vehicles and to be quite tough. So yeah, I like to see that. I can see it as being a very technical game when you have a Zod break there, but then the Trike unit can run it down, right? So he has to be kind of defensive with the Zod unit, because last thing you would want is a biker unit with Zod with the Death Killer War Trike getting some kind of line of fire on that and then being able to charge it, ton of damage and stuff like that. It could just crash right into it and kind of hold it and jail Warhorde in place, which is what it doesn't want, especially with this double wagons. And you can see that he does have a unit of Mandos, but then we don't know what happens with who actually got Defender first, right? So yeah, there's just a lot of things that can go on here, a lot of combined arms asset behind this. And once the Warhorde list crashes into Cult of Speed and clears whatever the first wave is, In the response, they're quite soft bodies, and Cult of Speed has a ton of volume. Like I've spoken about, Def Coptas, they can charge an Ork Boy unit even if it's done with the WAAAGH, right? The Def Copta is already base strength 5 and pop lance, and each Copta has 6 attacks. Okay, I'll just blend this unit down as well. And in response, the Orks are now drawn back down to lower strength thresholds. The Flash Gits or the whatever leftover Mandos or the boys or the Snaggas are all going to be around strength 4 or 5 for the rest of the game post WAAAGH. So it's really able of the Cult of Speed player to dictate what's actually getting engaged with when the other counter WAAAGH is called. So interesting to see. That would be, you think of just the big melee destruction missile of what could be Warhorde in the gas brick and everything, and it runs into just a bunch of units, right? A bunch of flash gets on, because there's even a bunch of flash gets on our Andre's list, right? There's all the buggies, all the bikers, and 20 flash gets and snaggas. So you're dealing with a lot of similar just profile volume of damage. I'd like to see that. It's really cool. Then we go on to his third game, where he goes into Drakari, Spectral of Spite. Another one of those matchups that for a Warhorde or a typical Ork list would be considered problematic, between the pain tokens, volume of punches, their stratagems, their shenanigans. It's, yeah. Lady, whatever. Slilac, Lilith Hexpress, sorry, Succubuses, 3 of them, 3 Succubus. A Cabalite Warrior, 4 10-man units of Witches, a Hellion, 2 10-man units of Hellion, sorry guys, a Raider, a Ravager, double Reaver, 3-man units of Reavers, a 5-man Scourge with heavy weapons, and then 4 Venoms for all of those little witch units. Now, I've played into Eldar lists with Cult of Speed and similar types of units like this. And this is problematic for a Warhorde style. A bunch of small arms fire. They can push their pain tokens up. They have anti-infantry weapons as well. But what they don't have is good counter weapons into a bunch of T6 trash units that are also able to run them down, disembark them possibly, and then also pile in. Because keep in mind, a lot of people are like, well, they got all these transports still. The issue is that I can crash into their Venoms, which are soft as poop, destroy their Venom with maybe a biker unit, maybe even a flashgate unit, whatever, and then whatever multi-charge that Venom as well can pile into whatever disembarked it. So these units really aren't safe in the same way they would be with Warhorde, where the Warhorde player has to stage up and the Drakari player can run up and attack them and find a way to re-embark into their transport, and then stage away from them for the wall and then take a huge chunk of flesh out of them. It's like, no. If Cult of Speed will go first into you if you wait too long, and then they'll stay on you with waves and waves doing the counter of what Drakari wants to typically do to them, to other armies. Right? Yeah, like I've had so much success with like just the war bikers, shooters on the side of it with the Death Killer War Trike. Death Killer War Trike gets an additional AP from the bikers being on the list, so I can go up to AP2. I believe these guys have influence anyways, but you can have that, as well as all the bikers have twin linked, so they're strength 5. So if you wanted to shoot into it, and each guy, if you're within 9 inches, gets 5 shots of the bikers, you can just melt a Eldar unit as well, popping sustain as well. Then you just twin link it. Oh my goodness, just melting them without even having to really get into fights with some of them sometimes. And like I said, their pain tokens can push them up to strength, I believe, 5, and most of their weapons from last I checked were strength 3 when I was researching this matchup. So they're not going to push through that anyway. So and now I'm not saying they can't win it. They have a lot of units. Obviously they're playing with a lot of OC still on their list, a lot of shenanigans, so it's a respectable matchup. But Cult of Speed again coming through with that skew in a way that some other styles of Orks might struggle with. So also win right there, Andre. And then we go into his lowest scoring win. So Drakari was a second, but this one was his lowest scoring win. Still a good score, mind you. It's good, still good score. The fact that a 15 is considered low means you did great. What's up, chat? We're getting through this. He goes into the Necrons, the Pantheon of Woes. So we have Catacomb Command Barge and a bunch of Catons. So double Transcendence, a Void Dragon, a Nightbringer, and a Deceiver. A Canoptic Swarm, some Flayed Ones, Locust Destroyer, Locust Destroyer, Locust Destroyer. This is exactly the kind of weird skew that Cult of Speed can win without having to necessarily care about how much damage it's dealing. Or run down their little Locust Destroyers, run down their flayed ones and their swarms, and they're playing the game with just a bunch of Katans, right? This command barge, I believe in this one, that can be quite durable. I think, yeah, it's not though. No, that's Awaken, but nonetheless, no, he can give out OC, I believe, as well. But these guys are getting out OC'd from all the 2 OC bikers, all the 2 OC Coptas. You have still the dumb buggies. This is what I was talking about. Now, the custom boost of Blasta can maybe debuff one of these Katans from its shooting a little bit before it gets to you. Like if you have to smash down the Void Dragon, who's huge. Could you bring down a Catan? Possibly, but it's much more likely that you kill everything else first in Cult of Speed. And if you spike, with your rockets or any other type of things, yes, you could probably stack it, right? If your Death Kill Warstrike gets a melted through, for example, whatever it may be, you can try to bring down one of these, and I probably would, based off the positioning of the battlefield and what can actually get to what. But having that many bodies in OC, you're just constantly not letting him play the primary, and he will score secondaries, which is what it looks like, killing you for still being in combat with you and being able to just exist the whole time, murdering whatever he wants. But he's going to just be standing all around most of the time once he makes contact with you. And that's generally the issue for Necrons as a whole. So very cool to see that. This was one of those theoretical things that we talked about when we were talking about how orcs are doing now and each detachment and why I play Cult of Speed. This is one of those things. Now, of course, this is a team setting, so this is an odd skew that you might see in singles, but the get running this never expected to win the event. They're just trying to ruin some mid-table games. So this is still something you have to account for, and I love to see that he got that matchup and took it for the team, so someone else that with a normal army didn't have to deal with that, right? You're like, oh, you're playing something a dumb skew? So am I. Oh, right? So, awesome. Love that. That's what I love when orcs party poop the Necron parade. That's one of my favorite experiences. Then we go into this last game, which is another Creations of Bile. So we have Cypher, Lord, Chaos Lord. Cypher is great. We have Fabius Bile, so he can pick up a model in his unit. From what I remember, he can tank a damage to 0, and then he can also buff the unit that he's when he's with. So he double cultists, Legionnaire, some Chaos Bikers, a Chaos Rhino, a big brick of the Chosen, most likely for Fabius Bile, Nemesis Claw, triple 10-man Possessed. Yes, that's what you expect to see round 3, boys, right? Let me see what characters again. So Chaos Lord. So those Possessed are just getting it down. They can just pop Devastating from what I remember as well, built into their data sheet. And then a big 10-man units of the Warp Talons. As I said before, now you do have to be careful. Not let the enemy make too much contact with your Cult of Speed stuff, because then you've just been deleted a little bit too early, which is what I think is also somewhat of a factor for those flash kits that were incorporated into this list, right? Those little 5-man units, the trucks, the Mandos, these units are what's going to go and draw out these more killing brickish type units, because he doesn't have a lot of trading more skirmishes pieces. And once the bikers get into play and run up the field, if he's staging too much in a dumb position with his Rhino, Cult of Speed could take advantage of that, like we spoke about earlier with other transports, where you multi-charge them, blow them up, get stuff out, and then charge that stuff. But these Possessed are very fast, boatload of attacks that they can get up. I think up to strength 6 and then higher, maybe in Bile. I believe it's strength 6 because you get +2 strength, +1 strength, something like that. And then they have, I think, access to sustain as well. It's been a while since I played against them. But these guys are definitely the real deal. The thing that they're also is a big brick of 10 dudes when you're playing big Copta units. So don't give up your Coptas in this matchup early, of course. Pop that sustain too. Enjoy that blast. If it's a lower than 5-man unit, and if it's like a 4-man unit of elites, like 8-bound, like Coptas aren't reliable really sometimes because you just don't get enough shots. But when you're going into a big dumb unit like this and you just pop sustain, you just end up with too many punches, shots, and then you twin link it. Not to mention, you still have the bikers that can power through this, and he has all those flash kits on the list as well. So this would be one of those, I need to get you to invest those Chosen into my not as important units. Maybe give up one of the biker units on the list, and then in response, everything can dogpile from the snaggers to the flash kits, the 10-man brick, speaking of, right? And then everybody else. That's where also 10-man of flash kits might also be cool in the matchup. So love to see that. This, I'm sure, was a perilous game when you're thinking about the big missiles, but in reality, and then there's the Chosen. With these guys that have built-in advance in charge, fallback in charge, so they're their mini Cult of Speed. They too, as well, they'll only have about strength 5. So they're gonna have to take some buffs from that to get to be a more threatening to Cult of Speed, but none of those Cult of Speed units are super durable other than the Coptas. The issue is there's also mortal wound potential from Cult of Speed and stopping you from scoring on just the primary. So though he's trying to play, I need to do a missiling backbreaking shot into you with all these possessed, you can still just play the game. You can still just play for primary, deny him. Okay, you're going to try to slow play me. Okay, well, once those guys come out, it's game on. Or if there's just so many of them, you might be able to get the initiative on them because these big 10-man bricks are going to be kind of hard to hide when you're advanced shooting, charging all over the field as well. So sweet. I love it. He got a big old 19-point win there. So even though it seems super problematic of the damage, a lot of time people try to simplify things to this has enough damage to delete this, therefore this can't win the game, or this is going to struggle. That can be the case, but getting the initiative is key and very important, and what Cult of Speed does best. So let's look back at this Cult of Speed list real quick, and then we'll look at the chats. If anybody any questions. We have Wicked Joe with 10 Walk Tactic gifted memberships. Whoa, nice to see the big get back. Yeah, what's up, War Boss? You made it back. I know you're getting stuck in with your hobbying, so you better be hobbying right now while we're watching this because we got to get ready for that 11th edition so you can go out another world tour like you were doing. So shout out to Wicked Joe. Let's get some mega knobs in chat for Wicked Joe. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate it. Very generous. Been here since the beginning. So shout out to that great War Boss. So getting you guys stuck in. I see you boys moving green. Bunch of spores just got released into the sky. So then we have, someone was asking, how much of this kind of list is starting off the board typically? Typically, just 1 unit of Def Coptas I hide off the field because I'm not willing to let my Def Coptas take damage early. They're really, really, really important late game when you can pop the invones and keep flying around and touching stuff and throwing your OC around. And so I like to keep my Coptas for like the 3rd wave, typically, as I said. When you're playing with this Cult of Speed list, if you have to use all your bikers, for example, like early turn 1 and you haven't killed enough of the enemy and they do have enough damage to kill you, like the last possessed list that we just seen, and you admit all those war bikers, well then clearly you're going to run out of your screens, your waves, your assets far too early. So there is a measure of kill the enemy to a degree first, draw out their best assets, try to cripple them, and then hit them with your remaining 2 waves. So that first wave is kind of like the fodder wave, right? But that's why you would put a Def Copta unit in reserve. Also, it's a pretty cool ingress, and it keeps your enemy honest with screening their backfield, right? So sometimes they don't really understand this matchup, don't take it as serious, or they do understand it, and they're like, oh, if you put nothing in deep strike, I'm just going to front load everything and full damage you. It's like, no, I'm going to put one of these things in deep strike just to keep you honest and screening your backfield so you can't front load your whole army's damage potential. And then I'll still maybe drop these Coptas in a good position. So thanks for the question. That was a good one there. Shout out to Wicked Joe again. Oh, and then our boy Flynn with $5 Cult of Speed. Whoa! I know Flynn's been playing Cult of Speed recently. So shout out to that because I know he's pumped about it. People always doubt it, and you start playing it, you enjoy some of the buggies sometimes and everything. It's still super fun. What's up? Exactly. Red ones are faster. And of course, our boy Andre from Italy proved it. So shout out to Cult of Speed being the undefeated teams list from this last weekend. Of course, I've said my piece about Kult of Speed. I know there's other people that are putting waves out there and catching on the Kult of Speed, but I will say it isn't a new tech. It's a known thing if you've been watching Channel 2, but it's a known thing not because I'm so wise. It's, I heard about it along the edges of the perimeter of the Great Wall world, and also I have all the models, so of course I got to play it. So that's how I figured it out too. So people a lot of the time though were noticing it in teams and became a little bit too much askew for singles once Eldar fell away and some of those other type of armies. So I still think they have a lot of play, and I think they really shined here in teams. So I'm pretty excited for that. And with that being said, let's do. I think we should do the next Ork list being the undefeated GT winner from last weekend. So I'm going to give you guys more time to get votes in on what you guys want to see. But I think it's time to get stuck in with Tom Godfrey and his 5-0 undefeated War Horde list, getting first place at a GT. It's been a while for the War Horde, I will say. So let me clear some of these tabs. Because there's a little bit too many, and now I'm gonna get stuck in with our boy. So he did give notes. If you haven't watched or heard Tom Godfrey before, he's been shown his list several times. Sadly, he is in the UK, so it's hard to get him as a guest. But he did give us things we to talk about, and we discussed how it's sometimes hard to translate or people to appreciate things if in the same exact terrain, because he plays on the UKTC terrain. So we talk more about in his notes more about how the matchups in games went and what his units were trying to get into and the fights he was trying to get in. So bit detailed, quite a bit of a nail biter, to be honest, right? So it starts off flow, things are going his way, and then boom, he gets some hard games and hard situational matchups where I'm sure the majority of people would not come back from. So let's talk about his list. Talk about the real deal, Tom, because he's going for #1 Ork this year. He gets. So you'll be hearing more from this boss. We have 2 beast bosses in War Horde. That right there is one of the biggest, easiest takeaways we've seen over the last couple of weeks is more and more beast Naga boss doubles lists are appearing on all the War Horde lists. Totally respectable. I understand why, but where we're at in the meta is why you're seeing more beast bosses appear. More hull spam, more monster spam than ever. Well, not ever. More like earlier, maybe a year ago in the edition. So double beast bosses are back on the menu, boys. Then we have a Big Mech with Follow Me Lad going with the Gazgul Thraka, big 20-man unit of boys. Nice fundamental core of the greatest War Horde lists around right now. And then we have a boss Snikra alongside 2 units war bosses, which are alongside 2 Breaker Boy units. Inside of the trucks alongside the Breaker Boy units are 2 5-man units of flash kits. So we have 2 trucks that are each independently with Snagga Boys, followed by 2 Breaker Boy units that are inside trucks as SWAT teams with the flash kits. 2 minimum size units of Gretchen for screening backfields, or sometimes for throwing up early to try to bait the enemy or try to get an objective going, followed by a 10-man unit of commandos. So it's funny because I remember just people were not sure how impactful the Mando change was. Quite impactful, and just about every single list of the majority of detachments are running Mandos at this point. So nice to see that tech gets our understanding the infiltration game and its importance, even when you're not playing a high early 1 pressure army all the time. Now, if you look at his past lists, which are still good, solid lists, you would know that Tom was more of a lot of trash type of player, right? Meaning by that, what I mean by that is you're someone who doesn't like a big, important, expensive combo at the core of your list. You don't like, I'm saying the person, typical archetype person, doesn't like having to spend 450 points on Gaz and the boys and the Big Mac and the enhancement, right? So I understand that. I'm one of those players as well. So I totally understand when we're talking about it. But when the Gaz change happened, he adopted it. And you can probably check out the last video, even just the end of it, where he was saying, I'm not sure about this Gaz change, but I'm going to keep going with it while I figure things out. I think that itself is something that people should take to mind. A lot of the time when you're an intermediate or new player, you'll build up a list in your head so much and how you want to play it. And then you'll get a couple games into your practice and you'll change the list or totally give up on it because you lost, right? Because it didn't go exactly your way. Tom's a great example of running a similar archetype with minor tweaks and adjustments as you get through more and more games, right? So not a professional world-class player that plays, he's a normal everyday lad, family life, beautiful, paints very well in our paint competitions. So it's a relatable goal and achievement in that sense that he's just been playing the same thing for a very long time in his meta, having a great time getting stuck in. So though it's not super fancy, it stays because all of us can relate to this list to a degree, and a lot of us probably already have a good amount of these models based off where the meta's already been. He did have a lot of kind words to say about Snickrot and stuff like that. So we'll talk about his thoughts more near at the end, because I always ask them, the players I get notes from, who's your MVP, what would the changes be, stuff like that. So now we'll look at his path to victory. I will try my best to walk you through the walls of notes and text that my get send me. I actually appreciate it though. It was a fun read, and I was like, ooh, that looks tough. So let's get into it. Very awesome. Shout out to the gets. Let's look at his events. So you start off with 2 big 100s and then go going from there. The only undefeated at this event as well. Like I said, this is in the United Kingdom. So he was playing the UKTC terrain. I already showed this list. I'm not going to show it again. Sorry. Like I said, anybody that wants to say anything in the chat about the list at the end of going through the path to victory, I'll cover that. But like I said, I got some notes. So first thing was a mirror matchup, boys. So we seen the Orks, the Greens guys were fighting each other all weekend. We seen it on the Cult of Speed list. We see it here. The mirror, the biggest bosses are around. So Tom said he was familiar with this player. He talks to this player all the time. They exchange ideas. So this was a little bit of the master meets the apprentice boss type of situation. So we have Beast Boss with Cunning But Brutal. I'll appreciate that. A Big Mac with Follow Me Lads, and a Gazgul. Nice lean list right there. I'm appreciating that. Yep. A big, I like that. A big 20-man unit of the Beast Snaggers for that fall back and charge potential. So he has 2 mobs here. And then the Gaz mob. Triple Chucks, a wagon, double Breaker Boys, double Flash Get SWAT teams, 2 Gretchen, a Mando, a Storm Boy, and then 1 individual Tank Buster unit. Interesting why you would have a Tank Buster unit, but I'm not against it. Sometimes you just want to keep your enemies honest to a certain degree. But similarities in Tom Godfrey's list that you can see because they talk in their gets, but he paid for the wagon and the 20-man snagger. Now, as for how this game went, like I said, he knew about him, but our gate had a little bit of a boss to master situation, right? Jedi Master is Tom went first, and he dangled out a single commando into the center objective for a cleanse and staged some chucks in the midfield. Now, the issue is the Ork player here, John, made a little bit of some mistakes. He sent part of the gas brick out to storm hostile objective. He poked the Beast Snaggle wagons out a little too far, and he brought some trucks out into the open where he actually disembarked the breakers and the gets from the truck, maybe thinking I'm going to use the trucks as a wall, a screen. You can't get through my trucks and such, therefore I'm going to use it as a barrier, and then I'm going to countercharge you, right? I've done that with World Eaters, for example. So then he says, and then he has the truck for the flash kits for the Overwatch didn't do well. So Tom said at that point, didn't need any further invitation. He called a huge wall. He wrapped the wagon with breakers and commandos. And then he ended up popping the wagon. And then because of the emergency disembark, he killed a bunch of the snaggers that couldn't find space to get out since he had wrapped the wagon and there was multiple units on it. And then he still activated the Mandos to pile in and fight the Snagger boys. So he essentially deleted the 20-man Snagger unit right off the rip. From that, he said his gas brick fought Tom's gas brick fought John's brick, but the issue was John's brick couldn't fight through the wall. Because he wasn't right up on the wall within 1 inch of the wall, and you can't fight through one of your own Ork boys to fight through the wall in that sense. So the gas boy didn't get the fight. And so in that pace, he really just lost all his assets and had a huge devastating wall accomplished on him, which is the threatening aspect of playing orcs into orcs, especially when you're playing against one of the best in the world of the bosses. So Tom pulled that through, and then we move into his second game. Of course, he said this was one of his favorable matchups. He said it was based off points, so he was just happy. Keep in mind, this Imperial Agent person won his first game, so he totally understood what's going on. Tom said this guy's a known player, definitely knows how to play. He just wants to play the agents. So we have a Clades Assassin, a Nevasaur Assassin, Draxus, Minstorm Priest, Navigator, and some rogue entourage, a Watchmasters, two of them. Two big Deathwatch kill teams, a double breacher squads, one Rhino, a Sister Battle emulator, some Sanctifiers, two 10-mans of those, followed by Sister of Battle, a Subductor pair of squads, and then two Voidsmen at Arms. Like Tom said, this detachment itself, its army, doesn't really have what it takes to stand up to it, to a real army and built out list. But he does still have notes for it. Mind you, I should have said this earlier. Round one was terraform and sweeping engagement. So of course that could also play as to why the other player was trying to get on objectives early. He's trying to pop terraforms, thinking that the game would be bloody. Then we get for round two, like I'm speaking of right now with this Imperial Agents game, it was Purge and Crucible. So what it really ended up having here is Tom just said, really, the dude had a ton of infiltration. It felt like Infinite. He had a bunch of redeploys. So in response, the Imperial Agent players came out with his subjugators and tried to get into the flash gits and the Mandos for a mini no prisoner and tempting. And then he ended up taking his big Deathwatch brick to get near the other units and trucks, to get near them and kind of clear them off objectives. In response, Tom had the flash gits, the truck, and the units get out of there and kill it. And then on a different truck, he had a careen happen where the truck moved forward, stopped an area denial by blowing up and flipping the objectives. And then also the Beast Naga boys jumped out of the truck as well. He said the guy also charges other unit of Beast Naga trucks and try to kill it, but they didn't really do anything in killing it in that stage, and didn't end up killing the flash gits either. So in response, the flash gits clapped back and ended up killing them and making sure that they couldn't overwatch or do anything. So the only really takeaways here was when he shot the Deathwatch unit, they popped a strat that they have a 4-up invuln and a D6 reactive move, but it wasn't a far enough reactive move to get away. What was another interesting thing for him is, people kind of forget this, is that you can fight vertically, right? So he charged a Deathwatch unit with his gas brick, and then he had gas go up the wall and then fight down, because combat range from then is 5 inches. So as long as you can go 5 inches down, your boy gas can still crump and get stuck in. So he was able to fight like that, which is pretty awesome. The guy heroic the Evisaurs, and the Beast Nagas ended up piling into Caladius and picking up both of them. So got a big fat 100 there, just being super brutal. Keep in mind, people will say, well, that was an easier matchup, whatever you got to say. Yes, but one, the player knew what he was doing, and two, you still got to score the 100 points, right? There's a lot of times people just crumb the other gate, go very one-sided game. Dang, I killed you by 70 points. Well, you only scored 83, so I'm not really that impressed. Like, you know, it's I am impressed, but where were you on scoring points? You weren't paying attention to that part. You were just so worried about killing. And when you're playing for teams or teams that could be differentials, but when you're playing for the singles for top plays going undefeated, you need to keep scoring anyway. So though he's dismantling his army and killing him, he just has to keep scoring. Shout out to Snickrot, which we'll talk about more, because he was saying Snickrot was just sitting there scoring him points all game, shooting matchups. He was important. So yeah, it's great job, I'm sure, from there. That's where also those two units of Gretchen come into play late game, right? You have a Gazzy boy sticky your home, and then you let those gits go run up the field once everybody's dead. So then we go into his third game, when my computer decides to. So he goes into a mechanized guard of grizzled company. So this is a known Astro time player, specialist to a degree, right? I'm not saying this guy's a special like super. I'm just saying like he's someone who plays guard regularly and knows his guard well. So he knew what was going on here. He had Acadian command squad, Lord Solar Leontis, and Nork Dead Dog. Acadian shock squad, Death Clove Krieg, quadruple, 4 chimeras and 1 Torox, a artillery team, some 5-man unit of Death Riders, double Kazarkins, double engineer squads, a Vanquisher, a Ratling, and then 2 units of Rogaldorn commanders. So this game goes from really one-sidedly awesome to oh my gosh very quickly. All right. So like when he was telling me, I was like, wait, what? Like, oh, it sounded like it was going one very well. So as he said, he knew this player, but right away the opponent made a mistake, right? If you don't know, you can scout the transports if they have the scout keyword, and of course if he doesn't have them in here, but if they had Catachans, they could also do that too, but in Grizzled they can scout. So he scouted forward these transports, but the issue was that when his Torox Prime scouted, it got close to a truck and decided, well, I'm going to charge that truck probably to lock it in place so it can't move up in stage. But he ended up being within Gaz heroic range, right? So Tom gets a big O pile-in, consolidate, charge roll, and moves 10 to 12 inches. Boom. So Tom's like, oh, that's all I need. Turn 1. Game's in the bag, right, boys? Right, you think. And they're like, okay, no problem. So after he kills that transport, calls a WAAAGH, boom, turn 1, he's getting there. So then he chucks himself up the field thinking, I'm about to get deep into your enemy lines. And he has, within his range, he has a nearby Chimera, but he also has a Rogaldorn commander about 8 inches away, and a Lord Solar Leontis. So he is like, oh, I want all these kids. He has a +2 to his advance and charge. So he's thinking this 8-inch charge is actually just a 6-inch charge. That's what Tom's thinking here, right? He's like, I'm about to go for Lord Solar Leontis and take his scalp. Very orky thinking there. Even the top orc players still think this way. But in reality, he had a better decision. Yeah, he didn't take it. Therefore, he just went for the 6 and he failed it. And he failed it even with the re-roll. So keep in mind, Gits, if he declared charges into all 3 of these units and they didn't make the charge into the Rogaldorn, still being an 8, none of these things are now in combat. The Chimera is free, the Rogaldorn is free, the Lord Solar is free. Right? And what I mean by he had other options, he himself says, I could have charged other units and then piled into the Rogaldorn anyways. Right? But this is round 3. Round 3 is when you make these mistakes. It's happened to me all the time. When you get to that round 3, you're like, oh, man, I'm a little fatigued getting this day over with. I just want to win so bad. And he's in this position where he's already putting him on the back foot. So imagine, call your wall turn 1. You think everything's set up for you, and then your gas brick just stands directly in front of the guard army and doesn't make any charges. Oh, lads, we did not get stuck in. Right? So so Tom's now standing directly in the open for all of the Rogaldorns and everything to crush him. So he said at this point, the enemy just puts all his damage into the gas brick and some other units. Nork Dead Dog crashes into Gaz and headbutts him off the field. He said, so at this point, he's just playing for points. He's trying to deny primaries with his leftover units, flipping them as he can, killing all the little skirmishing units that are coming out to still score with him, and hanging on to the objectives at the end because of Grots and trucks and Snickrot. Right? This is one of those matchups where it's shooting dependent. So all of these units that are normally trying to set up for shooting gun line, oh, I'll just kill that other stuff that's going. Well, Snickrots are standing there. Right? So I'm just ready to go. And so Snickrot was still able to score a bunch of points for him at the end. He said ultimately the opponent never really got to the objectives in time. Oh, this was Linchpin and Crucible of Battle. So not getting to the objectives is huge on Linchpin. So he only scored a 3, an 8, and 8 for primary. as the guard player. So though that went horrible for him, he pulled through because after making that mistake, he realized that he really, really needed to just play the mission, which is awesome to be able to come back from that. Because I know most of us would, I know people that would just be like, oh, I'm done with the game. We're not playing anymore. Right. But he pulled through. So awesome to see there. Right. That's the difference, guys. Right. It's not just the list. It's the player. It's the player, guys. You got to get through the basics, the fundamentals. Knowing that orcs are a game are about winning the mission and scoring points and trading your whole body for it, your whole army for those points. So it's worth it. Then we go into his fourth game. Another tough game for the most part. Because he was familiar with this player. These next two players, Tom was very familiar with. And one of these players he had never beat before. Right? Everybody knows that when you've had those kind of players and matchups and such where you go into someone and you don't ever beat the person. Tom's dealing with all this. Now we're getting to, he just had that as round 3. Now we're going to round 4 where he's dealing with one of the top UK tile players. I think he ended up top 5. He said, in this case, Tom had beaten this player a year ago. And so when these guys both got off to the table, of course, just like whenever you play into tile, you immediately go, okay, I need infiltrate. Need to be defender. It's like a control infiltration. And I'd very much like to go first. And in this case, they said that to each other. Tom and the tile player spoke to each other. And we'll just say Tom didn't get defender, so he couldn't infiltrate. And he did not go first. So let's talk about this tile list. So we have a Monka. Fishy gets with a Fireblade, Ethereal, and then the Fire Sight team. We have a Breacher squad, a Strike squad, Devilfish, Ghost Keel, Hammerhead, Carnivore Recruits, Pathfinders, the pair of them, 1 Piranha, double Riptide battle suits, and then 2 units of the stealth suits with 1 unit of Vespid. So we'll talk about what ends up kind of happening, because this is one of those games again where Tom was taken for a loop right off the bat, right immediately in the beginning of the game. Things got really hairy for the get. So in this one, it was hidden supplies, search and destroy. So as I said, as I left off, he didn't get any benefits for going first or infiltration. So immediately, tile player claims all the board space in the middle. He has scout moves, he has infiltration, and he's able to yeet one of those breacher fish squads straight down the field, staging it behind a ruined. Not staging, that was staged behind a ruin. So if you don't know, the tile, I believe in this detachment still can, they can auto advance 6 and the devilfish flies. And it moves, I think, already base 12 or 14. Been a while. I've had this exact same situation that happened to me, where he had one little boy unit that was left touching his home objective to try to sticky it. Now, it's not foolish that he tried to sticky it. It's that in this matchup, when you know that the devilfish can do that, right? So it can fly, move auto 6, disembark the gits, right? And then these guys get to re-roll the entire wound roll, I think it is. Yes, from being when you're on an objective for shooting. And they have a bunch of small arms fire shot. I believe they have the leader there. They can give them additional shot. Nonetheless, it's potent, very potent. I had it pick up 10-man unit of flash kits that are with my Big Mac before. And in Tom's case, that mistake cost him all 20 boys and the Big Mac, even with the -1 to wound. Okay, guys? So keep in mind, these breachers shot down the field, disembarked, and deleted the 20 boys and the Big Mac that were alongside gas turn 1 like that. Gone. Right? I'll tell you what, when that happened to me, I lost that game. All right. So in this place, Tom's saying, oh dear. So then it's turn 1. And of course, like we spoke about before, whenever you get in a situation where you're losing assets early as an Ork player that you didn't want to necessarily use to draw out the enemy, you're going to get the wall forced upon you. So he said, my hand was forced. So his beasties go to a hammerhead on the left flank. The breaker boys go on the long bomb onto the devilfish and fail to charge. He said, I really probably should have just left him in the truck, but he was just going for it. So the Dockagits get out, pick up the Git Finders, and then you have the crew in the middle. A Breakable unit hits a Piranha. Now, that's not a great trade, right? I appreciate you still killed the Piranha. You kind of have to, because that stupid Piranha can make you take a Battle Shock test in random phases. So if you leave it around and start, it lets you take Battle Shock's cool. But keep in mind, that wouldn't be a feel-goods moment either, where you're like, I'm killing a 60-point Piranha with Breakaboys and a War Boss, right? That's super overkill. But nonetheless, he's persevering. So he picks up that unit. And then his Beast Snagga boys on the right flank hit a Ghost Keel, but he doesn't pile in with all of his Snagga boys before rolling out. So then he rolls out his Beast Boss and whatever was there, and he didn't pile into the stealth suits that were real by as well. So he's saying he could have picked up both of those units and he didn't. So that was the shame, because he definitely wanted to hit that unit too. He says Gaz rolls hot on his own, gets a 8 on his advance, because the advance, so he gets a 6-inch advance and then +2 from the stratagem, and he makes a 14-inch WAAAGH on the strat. Yet our boy Gaz whiffs into the Riptide, leaving it on 5 wounds. He says at this point, as we've talked about many times on this channel, guys, he says, I kill a good amount of his scoring units and cover all the midfield objectives. So even when things are in peril, that is still your game plan a lot of the time as an Ork player. You're killing their scoring units and you're taking over the mid-table, because even if they are going to dig you out of that, they're not scoring any points. So it's always points on the mind. We like to crump. We like to get stuck in. And when you can't reach the good bits and the biggest beakies, you go for everybody else, right? And you say, well, you're just going to play the game with your best stuff then, I guess. So he says the enemy hits him back, killing the right flank Snaggas and the left flank Brankas. The Pathfinders whiffed into Gaz, but Gaz ends up dying to the 4 Fire Warriors and the Riptides. Crucially, he forgets to fall back with the Fire Blades from the flank of the Breakaboys on the right, which stops the Breakaboys from being shot. Awesome. In response, he gets cleared off the objectives. Not Tom, but the opponent gets cleared off the objectives. The 2 Flash Gits do the right flank stealth suits, destroying them and the remaining Pathfinders. The Breaker Boys kill off the Riptide with the Bomb Squig, and they throw a grenade. Then they charge into a Hammerhead. The remaining Beast Boss and a couple of the Boys go for the stealth suit instead of going for the Riptide. Now, some people would go for the Riptide, thinking, I'm just going to drag this down. I can't endure this damage. You know, I understand that thinking, but if you go for the Riptide, like he said, it was a risky play. There's a chance you just don't kill it, but you do kill the stealth suits, and that means he has the choice next turn. Am I going to use my Riptide for scoring, or am I going to use it for damage? That's where target priority comes into play again as well, where it's like, well, I have to go for what's going to stop him from points. When you ever get in those situations, remember, go for what's stopping him from killing from points once we're getting later in the game, if it's not a favorable situation for you. He says, oh, did I mention? Yeah, I did. Okay. Yes, I'm making sure I hit all the points. He says he kills more and he charges his trucks and Snickrot with the Devilfish. So Devilfish have a lot of wounds. I believe they have like 14. So it's going to be, you know, they can get off charge, and they're big. So they can get off charging a lot of stuff too. He pins Snickrot, stopping him from teleporting. In response, during Tom's turn, and Snickrot ends up finishing off the Hammerhead for Bring It Down like a hero. And Grots get into the truck that's sitting across two different no man's land objectives, because there's hidden supplies. So he says, hey, if you pop the truck, all my Grots are going to get out and just drop OCN on these. Ultimately, in the end, he scores his first 5 primary points. He says, yes, losing the Gaz break was bad, but his wall jailed him and scared him away from all his anti-vehicle threats. Again, he never got into the circles to score primary. So though he got decimated losing his favorable unit, once he declared that wall and made all the charges and everything else, the enemy was playing more keep away. Like, well, I can't kill everything in this Ork army, so I'm going to kill what I can and try to stay out of charge range from the remaining units. Well, if that's the case, as Tom said, I'm just going to kill your other units then. And that went well for him. So now we go into his final matchup. And this is the matchup that I was alluding to earlier, where he said he's played this gentleman several times, and he wasn't able to get any wins on him. So this was take and hold, search and destroy. He said, I've been waiting for this one. Easily one of the best players in this area, past GT winner and WCW qualifier. So he's saying this guy also got second place with CSM last year. So he said he has handed me plenty of involuntary Warhammer lessons in the last 2 years. And this is his 5th game where he still hasn't gotten a win into him. So imagine that pressure at that point in Tom's head. He's had all these close games. Something, that last one was his mistake, right? Not trying to clown him again. I'm just saying I made a mistake too, but that was his mistake. So imagine you're doubling down in your mindset and pressure. Dang, I can't make those mistakes like I did versus everybody else. How's this game gonna go? Right? What can I do? So Tom, he's building himself up right now, and he's ready for this. So let's go over the CSM list. We got Chaos Lord, Cypher, and then the Fabius Bile. So we're seeing, oh man, I have not seen so many of these friggin' Fabius Bile lists more than I have today. I think I've seen 4, maybe 5 of them. And I'm happy for that. I actually have a Fabius Bile model. I used to run a Fabius Bile army. So shout out to the Gits. We have a Cult of Mob, Legionnaires, 2, 3, 5-man units, triple Chaos Rhinos, triple Chaos Predator Destructors, big unit of Chosen, double units of Noise Marines, double Rubrics. Boom, that's the list. Quiet Elite, big bunch of missile units, good firepower support with all the Predator cannons, Chosen with their advance and charge, Fabius Bile himself for giving buffs out to other units. Nice. And a bunch of different of these little 5-man Legionnaire bricks. Now, if you guys don't know that this Chaos Lord kind of acts like a war boss and just missiles these units up the weed, but hey, here we are. Here we are. So let's me yapping enough and let's see what our Git had to say about this. So he said, Tom gets to go first. Stage up. He puts the Mandos in the middle for bait and force a response. Staging the trucks in the corner because he started 2 Predators in the strat reserve. So it was pretty easy to hide one of the trucks from the one Predator on the board. Nice read on the table, right? He brings a Rhino into his Tom's natural expansion, unloads the rubrics that pick up the grots, and he flips it. He also brings out his cultists on the right, kind of right near the middle, ready to kill the Mandos, throw grenades at them, and score air denial. Also, the opponent Predator doesn't get a big enough advance to shoot into the truck, so the truck's safe. His other squad of rubrics goes to the very top of the building to overwatch the middle with plunging fire, and he ends up killing the Mandos with the Predator. At this point, Tom's like, it's time to go. You've put these Predators on the line, you have these units in reserve, you have these rubrics staging up, and your only screen, right? He didn't wait. I really need to only declare the wall when I have access to that chosen unit. No, I'm using these things like climbing pads, like leap pads, like leapfrog, like moving up the field. I kill your scoring long chaff little units because then they can't be used to kill my chaff skirmish units. Kill those guys, take up board positioning, have my durability up. You hit me with your potential, and then I reply with everything else in response. So that was a good read and draw by Tom because Tom, kind of not forced, but he set up this scenario himself just by his staging. So that's always overlooked by by people. So he says Tom calls his wall, he hits a good advance, really good charges, clears up the rubrics, the rhinos, and the legionnaires that disembark from a rhino, right? Like we always talk about, get these multiple charges off on the rhinos, pop it with one unit, pile into the next one. He rapid ingress near the Predator, near Tom's home objective. So he's going for Tom's hold. This is taking hold, so that is a valuable objective. Then the gas brick runs out, goes around the cultists that were still in the middle, right? Because he didn't kill the cultists had come out to kill the Mandos, so he hasn't had a chance to kill them yet. But because he can move through them, right? He moves through them, and imagine kind of like a question mark shape where he snaked around the cultists in the middle, getting some of the unit behind them. In response, the flash gets killed the cultists, and killed the rubrics. Some of the other ones killed the rubrics with the DACA. That's impressive because I know my flash kits never do that good. But hey, not in a long time. But hey, I gotta love it when it happens. He said a beast boss destroyed the one predators that was on near his home objective, near the enemy's home objective. Breakers took another rhino, disembarked the legionnaires, the Noise Marines behind his natural expansion. The Gasbrick charged up the building and fought the legionnaires from above, popped the final rhino, and piled into the legionnaires, plus the Lord of Contagion. He said that's, I mean, not the Lord, the Chaos Lord, excuse me. He said that was probably a mistake because you get the big clap, big punch from them. He said his clapback, though, was kind of limp-fisted. The enemy didn't roll that well. He rolled a lot of the invulns as well. The Noise Marine, Cypher, the Predator, and the Fabius Chosen shot down Gaz's unit, down to the Big Mech and Gaz himself. And then Fabius Bile and the Gits charged and killed the Beast Nagas that killed the Predator. The Legionnaires and the Chaos Lords killed the Breakas on his natural, who fought on death. So he brought them down because orcs are never beaten. Making sure my truck kept the objective. His Ingress Predator charged the Grots on my home, taking it. He said he then loaded all 10 flash kits into a truck, poked the nose through a terrain, and he docked Cypher down to the death. Right? That's also something people forget. Good way to move around units that are slow or deal with fallbacks. Just jump your gets into a transport, move that around, and take advantage of your firing deck. So then from that point, once he was dead, that he said, well, even if Cypher did survive, he would shoot back, but he would only shoot the truck and not really kill it, and he didn't really care if he did kill it. Gaz still was alive, running around, being a menace for the rest of the game, killing the Noise Marines and a Predator. He forced an emergency disembarked with his Gits when the truck died and hopped over the Chosen Brick, moving onto the center objective. Boom, job done, he said. And that was where the game was called. So awesome breakthrough and kills right there. Tom ended up avenging his prior losses to this Git Jonathan, coming through and getting a big undefeated 5-0 finally with this Warhorde list, now that he's refined and defined this list to a T. So he did have some things to say about it, but not too much. He said, to be honest, he really loves the list, and at this point he can't really change it anymore. So he's going to keep it exactly how it is for now, which is what most people would do if they won an event, right? But he did have some nice things to say. He said, honestly, I barely teleported my Snickrot, but he was my MVP. Having a lone op to sit on my middle objectives while the enemy hid or was jailed by my forward pressure was invaluable versus Guard, Tau, and Shooty CSM. He said he also killed a Rubric squad and he killed the Hammerhead, right? Gotta love that about Snickrot. At least I feel like he does that in Warhorde. So ultimately, Tom encourages you guys keep playing your Warhordes out, getting used to those reps, paying attention to the combat, little tips and tricks that we talk about, and getting stuck in with the Gits, because even when you take your bloody nose and get one of your teeth knocked out, you're still stuck in the fight, lads. So you got to focus. And that's what we've seen today when we talk about his playthrough on the list. That's something that could be taken for granted, right? You look at the event list, oh, that guy just won. He won that list. Oh, he must have just Warhorde and killed everybody with gas. Not really thinking about the human element of how many mistakes actually went into how he performed and how he actually overcame these mistakes that he made. So just word from the player, and awesome to see. So thank you for that, Tom Godfrey. We hope to see you at the top as you push toward being best orc. So that being said, let's end this poll because we got some Gits here. And it seems like the Gits wanted to see another teams list. And I do got that for you. So with that being said, let me talk to the chat real quick while I set this up. Nice to see you, Gits. Bada bing. What's up, everybody? Let's go. He said, Maine, USA running Stompa for the first time tomorrow. So pumped. Whoa, for the Stompa. Yes, I'm telling you, I've seen someone recently in my Discord show me that they won an RTT with their Stampa. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you guys, I never mislead you just to get hypes or clicks. Anything I say, I genuinely believe. So if it's a mistake, it's an honest mistake. But when I'm hyping things up, I mean it. And I really did. So awesome to see anybody still trying to make advantage of the Stampa, because you never know. Next edition's coming, guys, and the Stampa might not be playable anymore. Taking it for granted, all the people that are new or just not familiar is taking the Stampa for granted. Might never be playable again. It wasn't really playable the entire time I played 40K. So I'm excited about the fact that people are still just playing everything. I think that's what's happening now with teams also, is that people are just like, well, I'm going to enjoy 40K in another way. So here we go on to the teams player. I'm still going to talk to chat for a little bit so you guys can look at the screen now. Gather ourselves, you get. Yeah, someone else in. I only had one Mandos unit, but now I have several. I had a kit bash unit of Mandos myself that I made in the past, because the only way to get Mandos in the past would you buy like a resin kit from GW, and it was dumb. So I used Scion bits and stuff and made my own commandos. So I have those guys, and then I have 2 kits of the kill team. So yeah, pretty awesome to the guys who love Mando. I mean, we're called wall tactics here. Of course, I love the tactical gets. Other people were saying my bullet's about to cry. Starting a second army. It better be green. What it do, you guys? What's up, Wicked Joe? Whoa, everybody's getting like, okay, what's up? I think a lot of walls in chat. So you guys don't got much to say, but you guys are pumped up, and that's making me excited. What's up, Ricky? Everybody going on in the chat. All right, so let's get into our Gets Teams event. Like I said, this is live, so let's talk, guys. Whatever you guys got to do, I'm excited right now as an Ork player. I'm kind of always excited, aren't I? So let's look at our boy Nathan Pearson with his 4-1 War Horde list at Teams, where he only took a loss in the final round. Very respectable. So we go to a Beast Boss, a Gas School, and a Pain Boy. All right. No Big Mac here, lads. Just a Pain Boy with Follow Me. 2, 3 War Bosses, 10 Snaggers, 20 Boys, 3 Trucks, double Breakers, double 5-man flash kits for the 2 SWAT teams, 2 Gretchen, 1 Mando, and then the Knob, followed by 2 5-mains of Storm Boys. Boy, this list is out here looking like a list from 18 months ago, and I love it. Well, I guess they didn't have Breaker Boys back then, but you know what I'm saying, with the triple War Bosses leading elite units and the SWAT teams. And he said, hey, shout out to all the gets that have been talking about, well, I want to use my Pain Boy instead of the Big Mac. You know, I don't really favor that fancy fast get. Well, now you got your tough one. Keep the Pain Boy and still do the same thing. As we've said in the past, right? You can still tech into this as if it's your preference. But since we're playing teams, he very much had a concept in mind that he needed to keep. So I appreciate that. But it is different. It is a bit of a different call. So we got a lot of the basics here, and I'm happy to see it. What I'm a little interested to not see is, you know, this War Boss being maybe another Snag Up Boy unit, right? That's what we're seeing a lot of times. So, you know, to anybody who's watching this, maybe you don't want to use knobs. You can, a very simple change you can make is 10 Snaggers instead of the 5 knobs in the War Boss. And this list was very, very popular even in singles. So awesome. And that's his list. So let's go over his path to victories, because he has a lot of the fundamentals here on his list, and I'm happy to see it. Another person I'm happy to see is the red ones go faster. Whoa, to this get. You know, our videos did great together. We collabed together. He's getting everybody really pumped and hype up for 11th edition. Shout out to red ones. We did talk about the ones that go faster today. So, of course, nice to see you getting stuck in. So let's look at his path to victory. Let me make sure I didn't click the wrong get. No, I did. Okay. Yay. All right. So we have Emperor's Children. This is just like so clean, guys, right? Is this aesthetically just boom, boom, whole list. No fat. Double Demon Prince with Slanesh wings. Triple Lord of whatever, Kanafatis. I forgot their names. They pretty much act like war bosses. They supercharge themselves once and then get stuck in. 2 5-man units of Tormentors, some Flawless Blades, 3 6-man units of Noise Breens, a Chaos Spawn, a land raider. Oh, I haven't seen that before. And then triple rhino. Whenever we've kind of had this matchup, War Horde does have some favorable things here. Typically, these winged demon prints are very tough. War Horde can push through on that. The fights on death pull down these units that are actually hoping to be heat-seeking missiles, delete you, and then come and do it again. You know, there's not really a lot of variables that they can have in here. It's demon princes run up, draw your assets, they countercharge you with their supercharged Lord dude and some noise marines hitting you, and then they hope that they've killed enough for your army and that something can fall back and do it again, and that these Slanesh with wings are not. But if you set up your wall properly, you know, with Nathan did, and we don't know what the mission was, which I would like to know, which also helps to see like how could I actually bait these guys. You can pull them down quite drastically with a War Horde list, but keep in mind, never let this army get the initiative on you as an Orc player, right? So very important that you still do have the basic understanding of this is where I at least would like my knobs. Knobs flash gets would feel a little bit more better in this matchup. This is a touch and go kind of game because though Orcs do have the advantages because their fights on death. Whenever an army can take initiative from you, you got to be careful, Orcs. So great job on that one, Nathan. And then we go into a second game. I like this list. I like it for singles too. His list, Nathan's list. So he's playing the Leagues of Votan. So he has a Call, a Strategist, and then Uthar. We have 10-man units of Hexmark Destroyers. They can split in combat squad with their little Sachitar. Quite tough little transport. 2 3-man units of Brokir Thunderkind. 2 10-man units of the Zerkers. You know, these are the kind of units I actually appreciate when they don't require a character. They do good damage. They have built-in Feel Pains and stuff like that. Fun for the Orcs to crump, in my opinion. They're not as tough as they used to be, so we clear them a little easier than before. Then he has a big 10-man unit of their version of Terminators in the Hearthguard, followed by 2 5-man units of Hearthguard, and then 2 land fortresses. So typically how this army plays is they'll come forward with their Sagittars. Things will disembark from these Sagittars and make some sort of screen. You barrel into the screen, and the screen creates a pocket for the Terminators to jump down, and then the Terminators combined arms you, create a big hole in the battlefield, and then push through that hole. In this one, he doesn't have the screens. He just has, I have all damage dealing units, which is then you're challenging Orcs to just meeting you on the wall, right? Because Leagues of Votan isn't fast in that case. So though they do have the damage, right? The big thing to worry about in this matchup is like these Berserkers. These Hearthguard. If they get a good line of sight to you with these grenade launchers onto your 20-man unit of gas brick, you know, they can pop sustain, they get blast, and they just blow away your gas brick very reliably. So there is a sense of urgency of occupying the board space and crashing into them somewhat at your first opportunity. Also, how these lists tend to play, not that I've played too many Leagues of Votan recently, is that they use these hackathons kind of as, well, come try and pop me. Oh, I can do that, right? Orcs are like, we can do that. Oh, thank you very much. So not sure exactly how this game went, but when you don't have the screen types of things going on, and you're just like, well, I have these big tough things, and you're going to come get them. If you don't, come get them. If I don't put them forward as a Leagues player, then the Orc just takes all the table space, right? So he kind of has to come forward in that way, and it leads to charges and wrapping and pile-ins and jailing them to a certain degree, and then continuing the pressure. So sweet. Especially when he has a bunch of those 3-man trucks and such, right? Those little trucks moving around and SWAT teams. So awesome. Then we go into his third game, which is the Demons. He said, the power of friendship. That's funny. He has 1 Great Unclean with Endless Gifts. That's now only a 5-0 Feel No Pain. And then he has the Kairos, followed by a Lord of Change, Rodigus, and Scarbrand. So these guys, this guy did get a buff. I think both of them did to their shooting. So it's like flat 3 damage. In their shooting capability, I believe the Kairos can actually do indirect. So you do have to be careful about that. Rodigus has buffs of like -1 OC to your units, and then Scarbrand is just Scarbrand, right? And then he can also give +1, I think, damage and strength, or I think it was damage and something else to a unit nearby, so he can buff units too. So he has a Nurgling, 2 10 units of Plague Bearers, triple Beast of Nurgle, and then a Flesh Hound. This historically from all the addition, when you're playing this kind of demons, and you bring the tools of I'm just going to kill big stuff with alongside Gaz for his lethals, these guys don't have much choice but to play the game with their big demons, and they kind of get crashed into, right? So there was only a couple times in the game when they had like the 6-inch drop ins and stuff like that where it could be a harder matchup, but for the most part, if they're going to stand on the plate in front of you and let you crash into them, you're going to do it. So that's a favorable matchup for the Orc. Got a big 100 there. Nice to see that. Then he gets another big score in his 4th game. Yeah, right here in chat. Shout out to my boy Kevin. Kairos could always indirect, and Rodriguez can take you to 0C even if it's already 1. So that's cool. So he can minus you completely to 0. So of course the boys can go down to 1. And then Kairos could always indirect. I just mean now his indirect is more killy, from what I understand. So shout out to Kevin. Hope you get top demon this year. So then we go into his last. Oh no, this is 4th game. Sorry, I was like, hold on, I don't know. I was like, I don't think he'd lose this one. Just threw me on my head for a second. I was like, this game 5? No, this is game 4. Similar to kind of like how Demons matchup could go, where it's, well, let's look at it. We have a Canis Rex, who did get signed a debuff, still an awesome data sheet though, followed by 2 units of the Knight Atropos. So these guys are devastatingly killy for the most part into like other vehicles and such like that, but they also have 24-inch range, right? So they have to kind of get into what Orcs would consider threat range to get their stuff off. 3 units of Helvrins. So this is their autocannon one. So this is like long range. I think when they hit you, you're -1 to hit. You're like suppressed now or something, but not ideal when the Orc matchup here. A Cladius Assassin followed by an Immolator with Sisters of Battle, so he can play the mission. But the score says a 95-point win. You got Gaz, you got Breakers, you got Snaggers. You're hoofing it up the field and getting stuck in, crashing into that army as soon as they start playing the mid-game mission. So something favorable, awesome matchup for the Orcs when they're playing. When you're playing this, the fundamental Orc archetype of War Horde with all the anti-tank. It helps a lot. Then we go into his last game where he actually, and also what I say for Knights is, I would know some people historically would have issues with Knights. I know the mission comes into context and such, but with the list that Nathan brought, he has all the tools to redundantly just tear down anything. If one of those Knights even starts to play the game, he's getting destroyed. And those little autocannon Knights aren't reliable like for damage dealing to any real degree. I mean, they might even fail to kill a truck without any support. So they're just hoping to like survive long enough to score points. So yeah. Not throwing it away. You can have struggles with Knight games, but once you have all the gets and the tools and redundantly, you can crump. Then we go into the last one. So this is where he actually loses the game, but he lost to the person who did best at the event, right? So that's always saying, okay, well, at least don't lost to the biggest good. We go into the Space Wolves playing Gladius. So we have WAAAGH Rotfist. This is really just a crumpy Terminator character. Lieutenant with Combi, Logan Grimnar, and Ragnar Blackmane. 1 10-man unit of Blood Claws, an Intercessor Squad, a Ballistus Dreadnought, a unit of Centurion Devastators. That's an interesting choice for fire support, but I guess when you're playing Gladius, you get access to like advancing and shooting or falling back and shooting, so it could be interesting. 5-man unit of Fenrisian. You got a Land Raider Redeemer. But this is a bit of a different style of Space Wolfy list. Scout, a Vindicator, and then 2 units of Terminators. One is a 5-man, and then one is a big 10-man unit of Terminators, possibly with WAAAGH Rockfist. So in Gladius, of course, they can advance and charge. They can fall back and do stuff. They get access to awesome stratagems. They can get Lance when they charge and additional AP. They can do fire support, like that gives additional ignore cover and shooting and such. So you can really do a little bit of it all. He only brought Space Wolves for the main characters, which is nice to see. Logan on there with his new data sheet. So a bit of a different stuff. Just a couple of the Terminators with the Blood Claws, and then fire support, right? This nice, old reliable Vindicator, not Vindicator, sorry. I meant Gladius fire support. Vindicator, Land Raider, Redeemer, and then Centurion squad. I can see the Centurion squad, like you typically, because when you call Logan, from what I remember, I don't think it's changed, but when you call Logan's one game ability, their version of the wall, they get access to reroll charges and I believe reroll hits and melee from the Logan's ability, right? I should pull that up, make sure I'm not lying. Chat, you can correct me, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly how this went. But then that kind of diminishes the value of Oath for the Space Wolf player because they're like, well, on my go turn, I'm kind of already rerolling hits. That's where they kind of build in some rerolls. Now, the Ballistas can already do its own rerolls. So that's the first one to go. Chip thing, something's full health potential. But then you also still have the Vindicator and you have the Centurions. Now, I know Centurions can already reroll once to hit, and if you're on an objective, they can reroll the whole hit roll. But I'm saying just for availability of use and appreciation, you can like that. So that gives your Oath something to do. Now he gets an Vect. Okay, well that's not good either into Orks, really. That's his old rule. Okay. And then he can bring in Strack Reserve early. Oh yes, that's what he does. That's what the fun of the Terminators. How could I forget that? So you can bring in the Terminators turn 1. Oh my god. Which is fantastic for fun, annoying ingress. So he has Arjack and Logan to deal with these units, and then one of them can bring in from reserves, and then he has the Vect aura. So he can drop that big unit in your face. You don't kill it. He Vex you so that you have less ability to, offensively throttle into it or defensively try to endure it or fighting on deaths. And then on top of that, he can fall back and charge you again if he's in that kind of situation. So this is one of those things, as I've talked about on other lists, like when I'm talking about Green Tide or Orks as a whole. There are those armies, and Space Wolves sometimes ends up being one of them, where they do combined arms really well. And if you let them fall back and keep hitting you, sometimes the Thunderwolf will be this unit that does this as well. More recently, it's been these Terminators, because the Terminators have 4 wounds, 2 up armor save. They're dirt cheap. So it's just, I can totally see how this list was kind of functioning, even though I messed up Ragnar's rolls for a little bit. Sorry, guys. That happens when you play. And then it's been around for a while. Not Ragnar, sorry. Logan Grimnars. But he does also still have Ragnar, and Ragnar crumps. And when he's with a unit of Blood Claws, I believe he gets an additional Blood Claw buff. That is his best one. I think, is it Renal Wounds or Ragnar? Yeah. Like when he's with Blood Claws, he gets something specifically. Now I'm like, I don't want to say a rule and it'd be wrong. Let me just read it. What's up, guys, in the chat? My computer's going slow. Yeah, when he's in Blood Claws, he rerolls the wound. Okay, I was right. So then Ragnar, he gets off when he's fighting because he gets strength 8 attacks, 6 -3, 2 damage to sustain 1. That's insane. Ugh, what did UW do to our epic characters, right? Right here, red ones. I agree with you. 3 superhero characters, 3 epic characters, and we can't match that in 10th. Got rid of our Rot, Snickra, Badrook, and Zagstruck. Yeah, I know, right? That's the one thing that I kind of feel bad about. I'm looking at this. I'm like, dude, I ain't Ragnar. What the bruh? How is your one basic 100-point dude supposed to be the one going to toe with our gas? So it happens. But this was a pretty decently thought out list from that Scott guy. Good combined aspect. Everybody's supporting each other. Things are quite durable. Terminators 2-up, Ballistas Dreadnought 2-up, Centurions, Land Raiders, Vindicators. So he's just spamming 2-up armor saves. Once the wall goes, there's not much you can do there. And when you have the Logan ability to ingress earlier, that means then you can also kind of take advantage of your deployment or your positioning and staging. Things get tough. So shout out to you, Nathan. No problem there with losing that one. Great job on your run regardless with your Warhorde list. I think you're interesting to see that you took the Pain Boy instead, and I think it also suitable for singles. So awesome to see. A Beast Boss, Gaz, a Pain Boy with Follow Me Lads, triple War Bosses, a Beast Snaggle Boy 10-man, a 20-man, triple trucks, 2 SWAT teams, which is a Breaker Boy and a Flash Gets, 2 10-man units of Gretchen, a Mando unit with the rocket launcher and the reaching ram, and then 1 unit of Knobs with Power Claws, and 2 units of Storm Boys. Keeping it nice, lean, and mean, baby. So, with that being said, shout out to you. And I think that is it for what we have to talk about today on WAAAGH Wednesday. So thank you for being here on WAAAGH Wednesday. Chat, how you guys doing? Thank you for that, Kevin, and everybody in chat. Reading back, Red Ones. What's up, Anna? What's going on? What's up, Greenskins? Whoa! Hope we get our characters back. Yes, I do too. Trust me, I do too, and I have hope. And if we don't get some back, I at least want to see Uftak being brought into the game, and I want to see him fight better than Ragnar. Ha! How about that? All right, sweet, fantastic. This was a long one, you get. So I hope you appreciate it during the weekday. So it hopes it goes a long way to encourage you guys and keep you going. Whether you're in singles, you're playing teams, you're playing a weird skill, there's a place for you everywhere right now in 40K as you end and round out the edition. Where the orcs are at might not be the most prestigious and respected and blah, blah, blah in meta, but that's good. That means you're not going to have to change and paint your lists up and chase the meta in that way. Expecting too many changes, you can look forward to the future and next edition. Catch up on your backlog, get stuck in lags because there's always lags. Catch up on your backlog. You know, there's always one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we'll knock you teeth out.